Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you across the globe. I would like to welcome you all to Invest in South Australia Opportunities webinar. And just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. If you experience any issues with your audio or video during the webinar, kindly refresh your browser and that should take care of everything. And if you have any questions during the workshop, please click the link shared on the live wall at the right-hand side of your screen. We have a very interesting lineup of speakers for today. And to start with, I would like to invite Mr. Siddharth Mehta, Regional Director of MENA India South Australia, DTISA. Mr. Siddharth, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Karen. A very good morning and afternoon to all participants who are joining from the region, and good evening to our attendees based in Australia. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you and appreciate your taking time off from your busy schedules to join us today for the Invest in South Australia webinar, which we are hosting in partnership with the organizers of Annual Investment Meeting. I'm the Regional Director for MENA and India region for the South Australian Department for Trade and Investment. I'm embedded within the Austrade office in Dubai. The South Australian government has identified 9 target sectors with strong growth prospects and is working closely with the industry and different stakeholders to develop and achieve ambitious growth targets while identifying and removing barriers to growth. Today's webinar will highlight opportunities and key projects from 2 of those 9 growth sectors: energy and mining and health and medical industries. Within energy and mining, we'll be focusing mainly on the critical minerals sector. I'm sure you will learn more about the state of South Australia, its robust business infrastructure and ecosystem, other than key investment opportunities and incentives available for these important sectors. Without any further delay, let me start with the proceedings for today and introduce you to our first speaker. His Excellency, Mr. Stephen Patterson, South Australia's Minister for Trade and Investment. Minister Patterson was elected to the South Australia House of Assembly in 2018, along with Premier Stephen Marshall's Liberal government. Minister Patterson was appointed the Minister for Trade and Investment in July 2020. And in this role, he started on delivering a strong plan to recover the South Australian economy from the effects of COVID-19 global pandemic. He has over 25 years of experience with a wide-ranging professional background, including business, local government, and professional sport. Unfortunately, Minister Patterson is not able to join us live for this webinar. However, he has sent his pre-recorded remarks, which we'll now play.
It's my pleasure to open today's Invest in South Australia Opportunities webinar. I'd also like to thank the organising committee of the annual investment meeting, who we have partnered with to deliver this event. It's great to see South Australia and our investment opportunities being promoted within this important region. South Australia boasts a strong economy and vibrant business ecosystems. It's a place where exciting work opportunities are balanced with an abundance of lifestyle activities. We're innovating across a range of future-focused industries, including space, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data analytics, cybersecurity, biotech, defence, renewable energy, and ag tech. And with dedicated state-of-the-art innovation and collaboration precincts such as Lot 14, Adelaide Biomed City, including the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute, and Tonsley Innovation District, we're attracting some of the world's best talent. Adelaide's premium office spaces are incredibly cost competitive compared to other Australian cities such as Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. Investors can maximise their returns with our competitive labour and property costs and valuable taxation benefits. Our highly skilled workforce is supported by industry-connected educational institutions, ensuring we deliver a constant supply of work-ready graduates, trained for the jobs of today and tomorrow. This workforce enjoys access to some of the nation's finest education, health, community and leisure facilities. Adelaide has consistently been recognised as one of the world's top 10 most livable cities. We remain one of the safest places in the world too, thanks to decisive leadership and a community effort towards COVID-19. In a fast-moving digital landscape, South Australia has reached a new era of connectivity, with 10 gigabit Adelaide and Gig City delivering ultra-fast broadband that is supporting the game-changing digital transformation of businesses across the state. The South Australian Government is business-minded and pro-growth, and we pride ourselves on delivering what industry wants. Join the list of respected companies already investing in South Australia. reach out to the Department for Trade and Investment's Dubai office to get the conversation started.
Thank you. Today we are honoured to have His Excellency Mr. Ian Halliday, Consul General of Australia in Dubai, and also the General Manager for Austrade in Middle East and Africa. Ian joined Austrade in July 2018 with responsibility for Austrade operations across the region. Prior to joining Austrade, Ian was the Managing Director for Dairy Australia from January 2010. Ian's expertise includes an extensive range of management roles with SPC, Goodman Fielder, Kraft Foods, as well as a few other corporates from Australia. Over to you, Ian, for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Siddharth, and good morning or afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the South Australian Government in partnership with the annual investment meeting in the UAE for organising today's event. Austrade and the South Australian Government are working very closely in the UAE and the broader GCC region to showcase South Australian investment opportunities. So Austrade's very proud to be part of today's webinar. Productive foreign investment is critical to Australia's and South Australia's economic success and productivity performance. And we have done well in nations for FDI over the past 3 years. Like other nations, Australia spent 2020 dealing with the economic and health impacts of the COVID pandemic, but it is bouncing back quicker than most. And thanks to swift public health measures, economic stimulus packages, and steady growth in resources, energy, and agriculture exports, it's worth noting that last year, foreign direct investment in Australia grew by 2.5%, bringing the total value of foreign investment in the country to over 4 trillion Australian dollars. So whether you're a multinational giant, an ambitious startup, or research organisation, or a sovereign wealth fund with innovative ideas, we do offer a safe, stable location to invest, do business with smart people, solid governance, strong global connections, and really a lifestyle that's the envy of the world. Today, I hope you'll enjoy learning more about some of the fast-growing sectors that South Australia is looking to get greater international participation in. So in closing, I'd also like to draw to your attention Austrade's Benchmark Report 2021, which we released last week. Now in its 21st year of publication, this report provides a wide range of economic and financial data that demonstrates why there is no better place and partner for trade, investment and collaboration than Australia. Some of the highlights in the report include that Australia is ranked #1 in the world for technological readiness, #4 in the world for ease of doing business in countries with a population of more than 20 million, #6 for global entrepreneurship, #7 for spending on education institutions, and #8 on Human Development Index. It really is a great report to have a look at and demonstrates, I think, very well Australia and South Australia's credentials. So thank you once again for allowing me to say a few words today. I hope you all enjoy the webinar, and we look forward to keeping in touch and seeing what we can do to help investment in South Australia. Thanks very much, Siddharth. I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much for your opening remarks. Now I'd like to invite our partner annual investment meetings organizing committee president, Mr. Dawood Al-Shizawi, to deliver his opening remarks.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, on behalf of annual investment meeting, I really would like to welcome everybody to this distinguished afternoon, having a very good and very exclusive webinar for South Australia. Please allow me to thank everybody for being with us here today. And we are at the annual investment meeting very happy to really partner with you to organize this event. I'm deeply honored to be a part of the Invest in South Australia Opportunities webinar. This webinar, which has conceived through the support of the Government of South Australia and the Department of Trade and Investment. The annual investment meeting, Your Excellencies, is highly committed to explore the investment trends and strategies that can maximize the potential of every business worldwide. not only within United Arab Emirates or within the region, but also worldwide. And we basically look into different areas of basically economic and investment to allow countries to attract investments and support them with projects. Since the inception of annual investment meeting from 2010, we have established basically a leading investment platform worldwide, which aspires basically positive transformation by creating investment opportunities and developing economic relations among nations, as well as addressing the globe leaders and with the deals that will make a profound impact on economic growth, Your Excellencies. Today, the annual investment meeting continues to reach momentous achievements. And with this partnership, basically, we are creating new opportunities and building really valuable relationship among the members of the global investment community with ultimate goal of achieving global economic progresses, Your Excellency. South Australia has demonstrated a true resilience in the faces of global challenges and is now leading the nation in the economic recovery. It has shown the strongest rebound, having the highest employment rate among all states since the pandemic began. This indicates, actually, Your Excellencies, that South Australia government prudent leadership and total commitment to maintain a competitive business environment and achieve economic expansion. The trade and investment relation between South Australia and United Arab Emirates, Your Excellencies, have achieved several milestones. We are really proud to mention that UAE is the largest trading partner of Australia in the Middle East. This is a great moment to further explore the investment through this event itself. And I think the opportunities are great between both countries, and not only between UAE and South Australia, but also between South Australia and the region countries. I hope that this webinar will really pave the way for us to have a deeper insight and demonstrate the Middle East and South Australia outlook in terms of investment and terms of trade together. This webinar will also, Your Excellencies, enable us to discuss solutions and address current and further strategies and challenges between the nations in terms of attracting investment. I really trust that Invest in South Australia webinar will really serve as an instrument to further stimulate the economic productivity, as well as basically establish economic relation and strength collaboration between UAE and Gulf countries and Australia. Let me thank all again, Your Excellencies, and wish all of you a successful event today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Daud, for your wonderful remarks. Now let's come to our first session, the critical minerals session. South Australia has rich potential across the mining value chain, from geological exploration, developing mineral and mining projects, to downstream secondary value-adding processing opportunities. The South Australian government is keen to work with investors to develop international links for the offtake of minerals and development of the state's abundant mineral resources and existing smelters. To provide you with a sector overview into the critical minerals sector of South Australia, let me now invite Mr. Chris Lim, who's our Business Development Manager for Minerals and Mining Equipment Technology and Services sector at the Department for Trade and Investment, South Australia. He's an experienced government official curating interactions and engagement between potential international investors and South Australian significant industrial project proponents. Part of his role is to identify opportunities, build strategic partnerships, and provide advice on the South Australian energy and mining sector. Chris, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sid. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Chris Lim here. You will be hearing a presentation along these lines or these themes. Next page, please. Yes, the themes that I will uncover is basically about the mining landscape. I will provide the listeners a description of the mining landscape in South Australia, followed by critical minerals, and I will conclude with an explanation of the 3 pillars of enabling tools the state use for the resources investment. To start off, next slide, please. Where is South Australia? A or B? The answer, neither. Next slide, please. This is where we are, South Australia. We are ahead plus 9.5 hours ahead of the GMT time. We have in our state 1.7 million people, of which 1.3 million lives in the capital city of Adelaide. In terms of land space, we are just over 1 million square kilometers, compared with the land of Saudi Arabia, which is apparently 2.15 million square kilometers. So there you go for comparison. Next slide, please. In terms of economic values from the resources industry, of note would be over $4 billion worth of exports in commodities. And the second more important note is that the state produces up to $7 billion worth in production value driven from the resources industry. Okay, and again for comparison, if you look at the Brunei Darussalam, the small state oil producing country in Southeast Asia, it produces up to 14 billion, just over twice our value in terms of GDP. Next slide, please. So what are critical minerals? Basically, critical minerals are stuff considered vital, but whose supply is at risk due to scarcity issues, due to geopolitics, and due to unfavorable policy of host countries. By the way, Geoscience Australia, with the website on the slide there, is a federal government agency that provides technical advice on all aspects of geoscience and geological data. But the crucial point of the whole thing about critical minerals is that they are vital to all aspects of our modern life and modern living. For example, aircraft turbines made of nickel-based alloys with 3% of critical mineral called uranium can run much hotter and produce double the thrust and also reduce greenhouse gases by more than 60% in comparison to alloys without the critical mineral uranium. Hence, they are important to us in our way of life now. Okay. Another famous critical mineral is cobalt, used in super alloys for also jet aircraft engines, medical industry in CT scanners and the like, EV batteries, and also the ubiquitous iPhone, of which apparently there are up to 8 grams of cobalt in each iPhone. That's what I've been told. Next slide, please. If you look at this slide from tradingeconomics.com, the price of cobalt has doubled since the start of January just this year. We can only guess why. Next slide, please. Similarly for lithium, another critical mineral normally used in batteries or EV batteries anyway. So I reckon, in my opinion, it is the January the 26th announcement by American president that American will transition its government fleet cars fully to 100% renewable. I don't know, it's my guess. Anyway, next slide, please. A point to note, though, is that in addition to geological exploration works to discover critical minerals, many of such minerals are recovered as byproducts from the processing of major ore bodies of gold, copper, lead, and zinc. So having said that, who are the processors here in South Australia? These are the 5 significant ones in the state on the slide. OZ Minerals at Prominent Hill, BHP Olympic Dam, OZ Minerals at Carina, GFG Alliance with its steelworks at Whyalla, and NISTA or Trafigura, at Port Pirie. Okay. Now we potentially could have a 6 significant resources processing plant. Next slide, please. And that might be Renesco's SPG plant, all right? But I'll leave that to David Christensen, the MD, to talk about his project, okay? Right, next slide, thank you. So what do we do as a state? We have, or rather we adopt this triple pillar enabler approach to the resources industry to help them along. Number one, we have a clear, transparent, supportive, socially and environmentally responsible set of regulatory framework and guidelines, all available on the website to assist project proponents. Additionally, the government provides bespoke case management services that works together with individual companies to guide its engagement with all levels of government with respect to regulatory requirements. Number two, the access and assistance to data, both in hard form and in digital form. And number three, we provide a whole set of ecosystems around the resource industry regarding research. Next slide, please. Number one, according to, according to the Canadian Public Policy think tank organization Fraser Institute, from an annual survey of 2,400 mining companies across 77 countries throughout the world, South Australia, we're rated 7 in the world in overall investment attractiveness, okay? And this is in combination of the mineralogy availability as well as the perception of the mining companies on the government policies that's relating to the mining industry. Next slide, please. Secondly, the state maintains a digital resource platform, or we call it SARI, South Australia Resources Information Gateway. This platform contains data on all the resources available in the state. And additionally, the state government regularly funds programs that calls for data scientists to analyze and improve the quality, quantity, and the availability of the updating of this data to assist with exploration. The tangible counterpart to this digital information in hard form is hard physical data obtained from over 130 years of exploration, core samples. These are all located in the state-of-the-art drill core library located at Tonsley Park, which you might have noticed in the Minister Patterson's opening speech. There was a big, nice overall picture of Tonsley Park in the video over there. Next slide, please. Thank you. And finally, academia. One of South Australia's 3 universities, UniSA, is host to the Mineral Exploration Cooperative Research Centre, or MinEx-CRC. It's backed by funding of up to Australian $220 million. It is an agency that brings 3 parties, government, industry, and research together to work on special minerals and resources projects. Number 2, the IMA, Institute for Mineral and Energy Resources, conducts large-scale research and innovation projects that has the capacity to conduct high-risk, cutting-edge projects. Number 3, Australia's Critical Mineral Research Centre. This has just freshly been opened on the 15th of March this year. This is Australia's first and only critical minerals research centre, and it's one of the very few in the world as well. It is empowered to run mining and exploration projects, and its current focus is on extracting more minerals from processed ores and tailings from existing operations. The centre also partners with mining equipment, technology, and service companies to develop new tools for critical minerals exploration based on drilling technologies, artificial intelligence, and machine learning capabilities. And lastly, in early 2020 last year, the government funded and invested in Core Innovation Hub, a private-public project to bring together companies in the METS ecosystem to enable them to work together in collaboration with a view for the more established companies to guide the newer ones and to provide more opportunities for networking and innovation in a shared space. This ecosystem aims to assist startups and support commercialization as well of innovative technologies. All right, so there you have. This is a quick and brief overview of the mining industry and how the state assists in the opportunities of the state in the resources industry. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Sid.
Thank you, Chris, for your informative presentation. There are a couple of questions, so I'll take it after the next speaker's presentation. Our next speaker is Mr. David Christensen. He's the Managing Director for Renascor Resources from Australia. David is an experienced mining executive with recent successful experience in managing exploration, mining, and marketing operations. Prior to founding the company, David served as the CEO of Heathgate Resources and Quasar Resource, both Adelaide-based companies overlooking their Australian operations. David commenced his career as an attorney in the US and UK with an international law firm, where he advised on corporate finance and mergers and acquisitions. Over to you, David, for your presentation.
Okay, thanks very much, Sid. And on behalf of Renascor Resources, it's a real pleasure to be here. Renascor is a South Australian company. We're focused on a graphite project located here in South Australia, but we've discovered and delineated a resource at our Siviour graphite deposit that has really become global in terms of both scale and quality. And we think this gives us an opportunity now to transition into what we believe will be one of, if not the world's largest suppliers of battery grade graphite for the lithium ion battery anode sector. Next slide, please. And next, there we go. A quick corporate overview of Renascor. We trade on the Australian Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol RNU. We've included our share chart here just to, I don't know if you can see on the far right, we've been trading relatively flat up until a major uptick in our market capitalization that dates back pretty close to where Chris identified some uptick in some of the battery minerals prices in the beginning part of the year. And it also coincides with a period where we announced some significant announcements, including offtake agreements with major anode producers. And with this level of interest, we're getting quietly confident that we're going to be able to transition from what looks like one of the more exciting projects, we think, not just in South Australia, but widely in the battery mineral space, into a producer for many years to come. Next slide. This is just an overview of the supply chain for how graphite goes into electric vehicles. We're planning at Renascor a vertically integrated project that combines both a mining operation where we would have an open cut mine and produce a graphite concentrate product, and then a secondary operation, a downstream operation where we'd upgrade that into a purified spherical form. And then that would then be sold to producers of lithium ion battery anodes. The anode makers then sell to cell makers, battery cell makers, who in turn provide those battery cells to power electric vehicles. So the product we're producing is a purified spherical graphite product, a refined graphite product, and our customer is an anode customer. Next slide, please. Now, we think we can do this in a very effective way. And in fact, we think we can be one of the world's lowest cost producers of this product, this purified spherical graphite product. And the reason is largely due to the resource that we have, our Siviour graphite deposit, which we began drilling about 5 years ago. It's grown into the world's second largest proven reserve of graphite and the largest reserve of graphite outside of Africa. So it's truly a massive ore body. And it has a particularly favorable geometry, which means we can mine and then produce that graphite concentrate product at the mine site at what we believe is going to be a globally competitive cost. Then through an eco-friendly hydrofluoric-free purification process, we can upgrade that into the high-grade purified spherical graphite product and sell directly to the lithium-ion battery sector at what we believe is going to be at a major competitive advantage. Next slide, please. Okay, so a few words on the graphite market. What's driving graphite as a critical mineral is its role in electric vehicles. This is just one slide that shows the potential increase in electric vehicle uptake as a share of overall cars. And what we're seeing is we're probably at the beginning of a paradigm shifting event. And this is driving interest in everything upstream from electric vehicles. Next slide. So obviously lithium ion battery is what fuels an electric vehicle. As you need more electric vehicles, you need more lithium ion batteries. Now, anode is the key, graphite is the key component in the anode, the negative electrode. As you need more lithium ion batteries, you'll need more graphite. Next slide. The market for graphite is actually interesting. What we produce at the mine site, the graphite concentrate product, is really only just transitioning into a battery mineral now. What these three pie charts show is the share of graphite that goes into battery against its other uses. It's primarily used in industrial applications. So as of 2018, very small share. You see things changing between 2023 and 28. Next slide. Now, what we're looking to do is to produce not just that graphite concentrate. Again, we want to go one step further and produce purified spherical graphite. The only use for purified spherical graphite is within lithium-ion battery anodes. And the growth potential here is even more startling, where you're looking at potential annualized growth rates of near 30%. We think this is the right market to be in for the product. This is the market that's truly critical with graphite. And not only is it a growing market, it's growing into really an immense market. At this rate, you would need over 90 severe sized projects in the next 10 years. So from a demand side, we think this is the right market to be in. Next slide. Now, in terms of our project itself, next slide. Thanks, Sarah. We're planning on, again, a vertically integrated operation that consists of both the mining operation. It's located outside of a coastal town called Arno Bay on the Eyre Peninsula of South Australia. We're located about 8 kilometers away from a sealed highway, and we're planning to take that material and ship it out of our port, Adelaide, to global customers, but then we'll stop along the way at one of the industrial zones in South Australia and process that into the high-grade graphite. Next slide, please. The process, the project itself, again, is leveraging off of the resource. What really makes this project special is the resource. And again, this is a particularly large ore body. It's a massive ore body. And not only is it one of the biggest ore bodies, you can see from the cross section here, it's flat and it's near surface. And what that means is we can mine it at a low cost. And so, Sid, if we could just go to the next slide. We believe we can produce it at globally competitive cost. So this is a cost curve of other graphite projects and where they're going to sit in terms of the operating cost to produce a graphite concentrate product. We believe we can produce it, shown in the yellow here, at amongst the lowest costs of any graphite development in the world. Next slide, please. And now our plan is to produce, again, not just that graphite concentrate, but to go one step further and produce a spherical purified graphite, and then to sell it to the lithium-ion battery sector. We completed a study at the midpoint of the last year that shows we could produce at about $2,000 a ton. We think that's going to be a major competitive advantage against anyone else who has to buy their graphite concentrate as feedstock at market prices. At current prices, we think we have an advantage of about $400 a ton. Over the life of the mine, that's over $1,100 a ton. Next slide. In terms of the overall economics, by any measure, they really look quite fantastic with a 40-year mine life. We think for a capital investment of around 142 US, we're going to get about a $500 million net present value. And if anything, since we produced these numbers at the midpoint of last year, the market has only grown more robust. Next slide, please. One thing that's very important in what we're doing is to have very strict environmental, social, and governance credentials. Now, part of that is based on where we are in South Australia. which is probably true of any Australian jurisdiction, we have one of the tightest regulatory frameworks in the world. And I'll just call your attention to another thing, which is our purification methodology, which is a very clean process that in particular doesn't use hydrofluoric acid. This is becoming increasingly important in the EV sector. Next slide. Now, our offtake strategy is to sell to the people who produce lithium-ion battery anodes. Currently, all lithium-ion battery anodes are produced in Northeast Asia. China dominates this market. They control 85% of it. In Japan and South Korea control 10% and 5% respectively. Next slide. To date, we've managed to get 2 offtake agreements. This has occurred in recent months. We have 2 large anode companies in China. One is a sister company of the largest cathode producer. The other is a top 10 anode producer globally. And since the beginning of this year, we've also gotten, I guess, more significant interest. That sort of investor interest we've seen that has caused commodity prices to increase has also caught the attention of anode companies. And so we're reasonably confident that we're going to be able to fulfill the entire stage 1 capacity. And this is a large part of the work that we're doing right now. Next slide. We've gotten a strong degree of support that we're quite grateful from both the local, the state, and the federal government here. We were recently identified by the Australian government as one of 2 South Australian projects that's a selected Australian critical minerals project. I'll just call your attention as well. We've gotten a degree of support from the Commonwealth government in terms of the Clean Energy Finance Corporation and Export Finance Australia giving us support. Overall, I think the critical mineral element on what we're doing has taken notice, not just of the investors, but of the government, and we're quite thankful for that support. Next slide, please. This is just our production timeline, and I'm mindful that we're coming up close to our time limit. Our plan moving forward is to work forward on 3 technical streams, producing a detailed engineering, completing our regulatory work, and then getting firm offtake from anode companies. If we're successful at that, our timeline would be to try to get to a final investment decision sometime in the first quarter of 2022. That could put us into construction in about 12 months. And at that rate, we could be producing product by 2023. Next slide. So just finally wrapping it up, we think we have what looks like one of the largest and we think most significant graphite projects globally. Because of our location and in part from the support we've been getting from all levels of government, we think we have an opportunity to produce not just a graphite concentrate product, but to produce directly into the lithium-ion battery sector. Because of the advantages of the deposit in our location, we really hope that we're going to have an opportunity to become not just a significant, but potentially one of, if not the largest producers of battery anode material for the lithium-ion battery sector for many years to come. I'll stop here. Apologies for going a bit over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, for your wonderful presentation. We have one question which has come through. It's an anonymous question, and it is for Chris. Chris, if you could give a brief answer to this. How does the South Australian government support complement critical minerals capability of the country? How are the government policies towards investors? If you could briefly touch upon this before we go to the next speaker.
Just very quickly then, I think the main thing of difference for South Australia is we provide a bespoke case management service so that we take the project proponent, we'll guide the project proponent through the regulatory and approval pathways so that they are very much aware of what the requirements are. And we basically introduce and provide the project facilitation services for them and relate, or rather introduce them to the correct parties so that they don't get lost in the bureaucracy. That's it. Okay.
Great. No, thanks, Chris, for that. There is one more question which has come through, but I'll probably, because you are there till the end, we'll take it if we have some time left towards the end. Thanks for that, Chris.
Yes. Sure.
And thank you, David, once again. So now we come, we change our focus to the health and medical sector of South Australia. With world-leading capabilities in data analytics, machine learning, and research that powers sophistication across sector like health and medical, South Australia is providing investors the opportunity to base their business amongst some of the brightest minds in biotech and clinical trials, digital health and medical devices, as well as the aging well industry. Our next speaker is Dr. Sandra Hack, Business Development Manager for Health and Medical Industry at the DTI, Department for Trade and Investment, South Australia. Dr. Hack joined the department last year after a career in industry and academia in the life and health science sector. Specifically, Dr. Hack worked for many years for a South Australian CRO with a global client base facilitating preclinical and clinical trials in Australia. Dr. Hack, over to you for your presentation.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Sid, and good morning to our audience. It's my pleasure to be here today and to present the South Australian health and medical sector. In the next few minutes, you will receive an overview of the key opportunities and capabilities of the sector. Next slide, please. This is a photo of Adelaide. It's really a beautiful place to live and work. It's one of the most livable places in the world. And it's big enough to be complex, but also small enough to be accessible. So for your information, it's about 20 minutes, 25-minute walk from one side to the other across in the CBD. We've got about 1.2 million people in this city-state, which is a centralized and advanced economy. I wanted to just get your attention, look at North Terrace. So you see the River Torrens in the left corner, and then the bridge going across the river. And the first big road you see there is North Terrace, and that's really where we have situated high tech, which was mentioned before. We have all three universities present. We have government very close by, and that small area just in front of the bridge, that is where Adelaide Biomed City was built over the last 5 years. Next slide, please. This is a view of Adelaide Biomed City, where we have a high-tech hospital, the Royal Adelaide Hospital, on the top right there, big building, and then 3 buildings looking towards the bridge. So that is actually 4 buildings. That's SAMRI, the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute. Next to that, the Australian Bragg Centre, which is currently under construction and scheduled to be ready in 2023. That will host the new proton therapy, which will be the first of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere. In that area, we also have the 2 universities there, and the third one very close by. Also in Adelaide Biomed City, we have clinical trial service providers. We've got sites, CROs, labs, and so on. And just south of the city, we have Tonsley that the minister showed before, where there's a focus on medical devices and manufacturing as well. Next slide, please. Some of the key capabilities in South Australia's health and medical sector are clinical trials and GMP manufacturing. Australia is very renowned for clinical trials, in particular first in human trials, phase 1 trials, but also we've got a very growing interest in phase 2 and phase 3, even going into non-acute setting, for example, into GP clinics. Clinical trials advantages in South Australia are that we have an entire ecosystem here in South Australia, from dedicated phase 1 units to the hospitals, to CROs, to bioanalysis for small and large molecules, data management, ethics, principal investigators, and research. GMP manufacturing goes very closely with clinical trials. We've got several GMP and FDA audited facilities that offer contract services. We've got services from large to small molecules and from an R&D scale all the way up to industrial scale. And really all the facilities in South Australia are GCP, GAP, GMP certified, which gives them a lot of credibility and often are audited by either the American agency, FDA, or the European EMA regulatory agency. And in the entire sector, there's both opportunities for contract services, but also for investment opportunities. And please contact Sid or myself for any further information on that. Other core capabilities in the health and medical sectors, sorry, next slide, please, are Medtech and digital health, and Sid has already mentioned a little bit of that. Medtech is really in South Australia coming out of the automobile manufacturing that was very significant in South Australia, and also is combined in the defence and space area. Some examples of South Australian companies here are MicroX, who are doing small X-ray machines, and Nova Eye. We also have the medical device partnering program in South Australia that is currently expanding across Australia. And the medical device partnering program is supporting the very early stage of commercialization, getting the ideation and the first products ready. One area that is a high growth area and very unique around the world is our digital health area. Adelaide really has the world's best AI and analytics capabilities, where they're working with companies, researchers, and government to solve and commercialize real-world health challenges. So, for example, we've got the Australian Institute for Machine Learning in Adelaide, which is in the top 3 of the world for robotic vision. We've got MIT present here, with Sandy Pendant being within the world's top 10 data scientists. Some companies that have set up in South Australia recently include Amazon, Accenture, and Google and partners, who have chosen Adelaide in order to work with these advanced capabilities. Next slide, please. This is a photo of SAMRI, the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute, as a symbol for our capabilities in drug development. And you might have seen that in the background of Sid's photo there as well. Within the SAMRI, we've got a lot of researchers present, a lot of clinical research happening. We've also got a federal agency, CSIRO, situated within SAMRI as well. And regarding oncology, as I mentioned, we've got the proton therapy coming in 2023. So we're really expecting a lot of investment and capability increase in the oncology area. And we've got also a few companies already developing drugs in the oncology area. One is Austrade, which currently has 7 drug candidates in either preclinical and phase 1. And also Carina Biotech, and you will listen to Deborah just after my presentation. And with this, I'd like to conclude and thank you for the opportunity to present here. Back to Sid.
Thank you, Dr. Sandra. Thank you so much for your presentation. Moving on to the last presentation for today, we have Dr. Deborah Rajan, who's the CEO and Managing Director for Carina Biotech. Dr. Deborah is a highly experienced and respected leader in the biotech and pharmaceutical industry within Australia and internationally. She's an immunologist by training. Dr. Deborah has extensive R&D experience in the areas of infection and immunity, inflammation, oncology, and neuroscience. She's also a member of multiple medical research expert panels and committees. Dr. Deborah, over to you for your presentation. Dr. Deborah, can you hear me now? Yep.
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Carina story to you. Could I have the next slide, please? And the next one, thank you. So this is a slide about Carina Biotech and who we are. As an oncology company, Carina is envisaging a future that defeats cancer. And the way that we do this is to use our platform technologies to arm specific immune cells called CAR T cells to fight cancer. Really what we're doing is empowering patients to fight their own tumours. And we were established originally in 2016 as a spin-out from the Cooperative Research Centre for Cell Therapy Manufacturing. This was an umbrella organisation bringing together numerous universities, research institutes and hospitals dedicated to developing new technologies for cell therapy manufacturing. Carina has received funding from both the federal and the South Australian state governments, most recently having received a grant from the early stage venture capital program of the South Australian government. Could I have the next slide, please? We have a lead program called the LGR5 program. This is a first-in-class antibody that is directed towards a specific antigen that is targeting a group of cells, which are the cells that initiate cancer. And these are the cells that initiate the spread of cancer through metastasis. And we have achieved impressive results in terms of arming the CAR T cells to attack these solid tumour types and increase cell survival. We've got an impressive preclinical data set, and we're working towards initiating clinical trials with the LGR5 CAR T over the next 12 to 18 months. We are addressing initially a very large market opportunity in the treatment of colorectal cancer. The therapeutics market there has been estimated at in excess of US $10 billion per annum, and it's growing at about 4.5% each year. We do have a number of other potential cancer indications for the LGR5 CAR T product. These include ovarian cancer and neuroblastoma. Because we are looking at patient populations where there is significant clinical need for new therapies, we believe there is potential for US FDA fast track for patients that receive our CAR T products as second-line treatment, and then beyond that, orphan drug status, as well as potential for breakthrough designation. And as I indicated, we're looking to move this program into the clinic over the next 12 to 18 months. Could I have the next slide, please? This is our team, and I think that one of the opportunities of the next couple of slides give me the opportunity to highlight is really the depth of talent that is present in Adelaide and in South Australia in the pharmaceutical and biotech fields. Myself, I've been a biotech entrepreneur and CEO in the industry now for over 30 years, founding several companies, concluding very significant licensing transactions, and moving products into clinical development. I'm supported by a great team. Jane Rathjen, who's no relation, heads up our business development. And you can see there Justin Coombs, who was the first CEO of the company, and also Professor Sean McColl, who is our Vice President of chemokine receptor, the proprietary platform that allows us to generate these CAR T cells. Next slide, please. We're supported by a chief medical advisor, Dr. Jose Iglesias, who has, again, over 40 years experience in the biotech sector, pushing drugs through clinical development very, very successfully. And he is himself the father of a number of key drugs used for treating conditions like pancreatic cancer. Professor Simon Barry heads up our manufacturing process, and we have been able to achieve really internationally competitive, almost groundbreaking positive progress in our ability to manufacture CAR Ts. And our biology is supported by very talented and well-recognised scientists in Professor Claudine Bonder and Professor Alison Cohen. So as I said, a depth of talent here in Adelaide and in South Australia for a company like Carina Biotech. Next slide, please. So I've used the word CAR T and I've talked about cell therapy, but what does it really mean? And I've indicated that it takes advantage of the body's own immune response. But what we're doing is taking immune cells called T cells out of the blood of cancer patients. We're engineering them so that they can attack the cancer very specifically. They're directed towards the cancer. They're able to access the cancer by the kinds of engineering that Sean and his team do to enhance the activity of the cancer cell, of the CAR T cells once they're within the cancer, and they're able to overcome the immunosuppressive environment of the solid tumours. And once those engineered cells have been quality controlled, and we can make those CAR T cells in 24 hours. We expand them over a period of time. We're now down to around 6 days of manufacturing in total. We then put those cells back into the patient. So they're a personalised form of cancer treatment. Next slide, please. We faced a number of challenges in addressing solid tumour types. First of all, when you put a CAR T cell in, it has to find a very small tumour quite often in a very large body. It has to travel through the blood and identify the cancer cells. To do this, it needs a postcode, it needs an address, and these are the antigens that the tumour cells express. We also need them to get through the capsule. That is a very thick lining that encases solid tumours. And then, as I've indicated earlier, once they're inside the solid tumour, they need to overcome the enormous immunosuppression that is part of the local tumour environment. And through our technologies, we've been able to overcome each of these 3 challenges. Next slide, please. We do this by a number of things. We have a proprietary platform, a special way of engineering these CAR T cells. And in particular, we engineer them with homing devices called chemokines. And these are, as well as having the address, we've also got the additional sat-nav in these homing devices, these chemokine receptors that help the specialized engineered CAR T cells find the tumour and be active. We call them serial killers, and we've got imaging of these activated CAR T cells in animal models of cancer, killing repeatedly these cancer cells. So we're specialists in serial killing. We also, as I said, know how to enhance the manufacture of these CAR T cells. And why is this important? Well, of course, we want them to be in the best possible condition they can be in once we return them to the patient to do the job that they're programmed to do. But also, they're very expensive treatments, costing up to $200,000 a treatment per patient. So by enhancing the manufacturing process, we can bring down the cost of that expensive treatment. Next slide, please. This is a schematic of what we do. The orange baubles on the outside of the engineered CAR T cells, these are the antigen binding domains. These contain the address. The dark black engineered chemokine receptor symbols, these are the sat-nav that help guide and give access of the engineered T cells to the tumours. They've got a number of other stimulatory agents and a number of things that are proprietary and secret to Carina at this point in time, but that's essentially what we're doing. We're engineering very specialised cells. Next slide, please. Aside from the LGR5 program, we've got a number of other programs in our pipeline, so it's quite diverse and it's rich. So we're more than a one product company. We're currently seeking to make some strategic additions to our CAR-T portfolio. And also we are looking to do a financing. We've just initiated that process that is looking to help fund the phase 1/2 clinical trial that will come down the track. Could I have the next slide, please? This talks to, again, the killing type that we're targeting, these cancer stem cells. These are really important to target because, as I said, they're the seeds of cancer. They're the type of cells that allow a cancer to spread throughout the body. They're a small proportion of the cancer cell population, but in fact, they're the most difficult of the cancer cells to kill. They are resistant to radiation therapy, and they also tend to be resistant to our current chemotherapy approaches. So through our CAR-T approach, we anticipate that we're going to really revolutionize the treatment of cancer. Could I have the next slide, please? We're addressing a very significant market opportunity in our LGR5 program alone, and even when we look at colon cancer. So obviously, it's a very large market, as I indicated in our earlier slide, in excess of $10 billion per annum. It's growing very, very rapidly. It's the second leading cause of cancer deaths worldwide. It's the third most commonly diagnosed form of cancer. And, you know, if we're looking at US statistics, over 145,000 newly diagnosed cases are expected this year. So if I can move to the next slide, please. Now, where do we sit in the world of other opportunities there might be to invest in this type of therapy? And an independent research publication on Carina and our competitors out there in this space have indicated that we are able to address all of the challenges, but also we are improving the possible outcomes for patients. So I'm going to wrap it up with the next slide and just leave you with that now. These are the investment highlights, and happy to take questions a little later.
Thank you, Dr. Deborah. We're running short of time. However, I'll just take a few questions for the interest of those who have asked. We have Mr. Mustafa who's asked a question here, which is for Dr. Sandra. If you could just elaborate a bit more on digital health and the ROI for investors, as well as some incentives which are there in healthcare. And there was a question for incentives on critical minerals as well, which we could take separately through an email. I'll send it to Chris. If Sandra, you could just answer that. Yeah,
thank you, Sid. I think generally we probably need to differentiate, is that looking at, for example, buying an existing company, or we're looking at setting up a new company here. So just answering the setting up a new company, we've got the South Australian landing pad, which I'm happy to send some information through, which would support a company in its first year with setting up costs and also with support by DTI.
Great. No, thank you. Thanks for that, Sandra. And a very quick one for Dr. Deborah. I think you did mention that in your presentation, but probably the person joining later. How many phases of trials, and a total time frame usually required for, this could be before it could be commercially launched, the CAR-T?
That's a great question. And one of the advantages that we have is that, as I said, we can take advantage of a number of rapid approval processes that are often used in oncology drug development. So we anticipate that our phase 1/2 clinical trial will take approximately 2 years, depending on the data and if it qualifies for breakthrough designation. There may be an opportunity for accelerated approval at that point, but very dependent on the data that comes through. If a phase 3 clinical trial is required, then we anticipate that that trial will take a further 3 years. So all up, about 5 years.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Deborah. Well, this way we come to the end of the webinar. I'd just like to close with, thank you very much to all our speakers and attendees to join us for this webinar. I hope you really found it useful. Please do visit the exhibitor booth. All those who joined us to the Events 10X platform, there was an exhibitor booth there where you can go and download some of the brochures and sector reports of these two critical sectors for the South Australian economy. I would also urge you to visit the Invest in South Australia website. It's invest.sa.gov.au, which has information on key investment-ready projects and incentives. One key initiative is the South Australian Landing Pad program, which Sandra just mentioned about, that is catered towards early stage and scale up companies where financial and operational support is provided for a limited time period. So thank you once again. Please do reach out to us for any further information, and please do stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.